Hello everyone, GoldenNova here, and it's time for Patron Week, where I take some time to thank the people who go the extra mile to keep this channel going. This month, the patrons settled on an archetype that inexplicably mixes Yu-Gi-Oh!, one of my most treasured hobbies, with another long-time love of mine that I am ecstatic to talk about. Premiering on May 25th, 1977, Star Wars released across the nation, with new mechanics that are shaping the metagame to this very day. Cards from the rugged and powerful X-Wing to the humble Land Speeder absolutely dominated top-shelf regional representation in every retail environment they showed up in. Droid Control finally came into its own, building off of Philip K. Dick's impressive replicant variant from only a few years prior, and local game stores everywhere became a forum that housed the fiery debate on which playstyle was better, Sith or Jedi. Fast forward a decade or two, and Konami R&D figured it was time to put their own spin on this sci-fi classic theme, and brought us the Kozmos in the August 2015 core set, Clash of Rebellion. By mixing in elements from the oft-overlooked but never forgotten Wizard of Oz theme, Kozmos had a lot to live up to. Coming hot off the heels of the most competitively powerful TCG exclusive theme at the time, Burning Abyss, this cultural fusion introduced itself as an aggressive deck that focused on finding a single weakness in an opponent's setup and exploiting it for all it's worth, constantly tagging monsters on and off the field to close out games at light speed. So let's meet all of our cadets on this stellar yellow brick road, do a quick midichlorian count to see what we're capable of, then see if there are any rebel sympathizers out there that can make us more powerful than you could possibly imagine. It's time to go to a galaxy far, far away with Kozmo. But before we continue, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you enjoy what I do. Once we get to 50k, we'll be doing our next 5Ds video on Akiza, and every sub helps. Also, check out my Discord, where Nova Pataru has been resurrected! And my Twitch, where you can watch me put all my lessons to the test live. And if you want to go that extra mile, join my Patreon, where you can get my videos early, help us reach these video milestones, and become part of the credits like these lovely people. Thank you all so much for watching, and now, back to the video. So, what's the deal with Kozmo? Well, they're a series of monsters that are any combination of light or dark attribute and machine or psychic type, but primarily we care about those types. In fact, we can divide our deck into two halves using this guide. The psychic monsters are colloquially known as pilots, and as a quick effect, can banish themselves from the field to special summon any Kozmo monster from your hand of a higher original level. The machines, on the other hand, are the ships, and when destroyed by any means from anywhere and sent to the grave, you banish them to summon any Kozmo monster from your deck of a lower original level. Though once we get to the higher levels of ships, things work a bit differently, and by differently, I mean worse. Oh, and don't let the names fool you. The pilots are able to tag into other pilots, and the ships can float into other ships. You're not obligated to bounce between categories when using their effects. As for their inspiration, if the opening was a bit too silly for you, the theme draws inspiration from a combination of the hit series Star Wars and the classic book series Wizard of Oz, which is honestly kinda cool to see how they mix these elements together. However, very few elements are exact one-to-one translations. Good Witch, for example, we're not really sure if that's supposed to be Qui-Gon Jinn or Obi-Wan Kenobi. I tend to think of it as just being a kind of mentor role that shows up in Star Wars in general. Let's start off with those pilots. First of which is Kozmo Tin Can, a level 1 light monster with 0 attack and defense, and once per turn, during the end phase, you can pay 500 life points to reveal 3 Kozmo cards with different names from your deck. Your opponent randomly picks one to add to your hand, and the rest go to the grave. Upon release, this was a huge pickup for the theme, because Kozmos suffer from a little deck building flaw that I like to call the Big Chonker and Little Scrunglow conundrum. The deck has two distinct halves that work well in tandem, but you need to have both for any of it to work. And thankfully, Tin Can is a little Scrunglow that can search you Big Chonkers. While you can't guarantee which one you get, if you only choose Big Chonkers, you're bound to get at least one, with the others going to the grave to use for later. And you might have to tag them out sooner than you think, because spoilers, Emergency Teleport is a very good card for this deck, and if you use it to summon Tin Can, then you don't have much time left in your turn to tag them out before they get banished. It really does incentivize you to kick the can. Kozmo's Scaredy Lion is a level 2 light monster with 1200 attack and 500 defense, and once per turn you can pay 500 life points, then target 3 of your banished Kozmo monsters and return them to the grave, and if you do, inflict 500 damage to your opponent. This is one of those later in development pieces of support that's just kinda there, like how Dragig was for Burning Abyss. Ideally, a lot of our cards are going to be banished, so we don't lack any targets for it, but we want to do something with those banished cards other than sending them back to the grave, where they won't be much help. Now, if the payoff was something with a bit more utility, like a search or some removal, or really anything aside from 500 points of burn damage, I could see this as a way of using your resources to advance your game plan, but as it stands now, well, I have no idea what the designers were thinking, and at this point, I'm too afraid to ask. Kozmo's Strawman is a level 2 light monster with 500 attack and 1800 defense, and once per turn you can pay 500 life points, then target one of your banished Kozmo monsters and special summon it, but its effects are negated, also destroy it during the end phase. Now, using this to revive a pilot wouldn't be very fruitful, as negating its effects on field precludes it from tagging out, though you could still use it as material for an extra deck summon. The primary focus, however, is to have it revive your ships. Utilize that machine for an attack, then during the end phase it'll be destroyed, giving it another chance to float into a new monster, all for a very affordable price. And if Strawman is ever threatened, you can tag him out for a bigger threat. It's difficult to say just how many copies of these you should run for optimal effect, but talking about it is so draining. I'd rather not have a Strawman argument. Kozmo Farm Girl is a level 3 light monster with 1500 attack and 1000 defense, and when this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent, you can pay 500 life points to add any Kozmo card from your deck to your hand. What you're looking at right now is the centerpiece of the entire deck, as most of our play sequences will weave through Farm Girl at some point. The big draw is that you can search any of your ships once this connects, and because the tag out effect is quick, you can immediately cash them in for even more damage. And because it's another emergency teleport target, you can blink them into existence once your opponent's shields are down and begin the beatdown. Now, the window of opportunity for this might seem slim, but I used to bullseye Womp Rats in my T16 back home, and they're not much bigger than that, so you'll be fine. Kozmo Sword Troopers is a level 3 dark monster with 1000 attack and defense, and once per turn you can pay 1000 life points, then target a psychic type Kozmo monster in your grave and special summon it. Now, most of the time your Kozmos are going to be banished, especially your psychics, since they can tag out at will. The intention for this might have been to use Scaredy Lion to put those psychics into your grave, then tag into Sword Troopers using it so you can summon one of those. That would involve using Scaredy Lion, and I refuse to do that. More often than not, you'll be using this to revive a pilot that got shunted to the grave by Tin Can, or ended up being used as material for an extra deck summon. And because the effects aren't negated, you can actually get a ton of value from that point forward. Despite the source material, this card ain't monkeying around. Kozmo Good Witch is a level 4 light monster with 1800 attack and 1000 defense, and once per turn you can pay 500 life points, then target a face-up monster your opponent controls and change it to face-down defense position. Yeah, so you pay 500, you get a Book of Moon, great for clearing big monsters that have a bit of a soft side. Though saying Book of Moon might be a bit of a misnomer, as it isn't really a quick effect like their tag out. It's a real shame since you can't use it to interrupt plays, but on the bright side, if your opponent tries to Valor or Imperm that effect, you can chain the pilot ability to tag into a bigger monster, getting Good Witch off the field so the negation fizzles. But that's what they get for keeping their targeting computer online. They really should have trusted the Force. Kozmo Wicked Witch is a level 4 dark monster with 1900 attack and 300 defense, and as a quick effect, you can pay 1000 life points to make it so Wicked Witch can't be destroyed by battle or card effect that turn. Now, it might seem a bit odd to give this to a monster whose whole purpose is to tag into another one, but it actually gives you a lot more control over the plays you do with this card, making it harder for your opponent to interact with, allowing you to tag into your ships on your terms, not your opponent's. Unless their removal doesn't involve destruction in any way, but other than that, it's wicked strong. Kozmo Dark Lady is a level 5 dark monster with 2200 attack and 1800 defense, and as a quick effect, if another monster's effect is activated, you can pay 1000 life points to negate that activation, and if you do, destroy it. Alright, we've got ourselves a Monster Negate. For the low price of 1,000 life points, you can stop things from hand traps to opposing negation bodies, helping to insulate your plays from interaction. And if worse comes to worst, Dark Lady can still tag out in case they get threatened, replacing them with a ship that can either handle that situation or float into another monster. It's a suite of effects that makes Dark Lady one bad witch. Alright, that's all the pilots, now it's time for the ships they crew. We'll start with Kozmo Sliprider, a level 5 light monster with 2300 attack and 800 defense, and if this card is normal or special summoned, you can target a spell or trap card on the field and destroy it. It's literally just an MST built into a monster that floats you into pilots, which, honestly, not the worst thing in the world. This can limit your opponent's options by taking away their back row, and we have some back row of our own that would love to get popped. No matter how you use it, this versatile little ship is great at giving your opponent the slip. Kozmo Delta Shuttle is a level 5 dark monster with 2000 attack and defense, and once per turn you can send a Kozmo monster from your deck to the grave, then you target a face-up monster on the field and it loses attack and defense equal to the sent monster's level times 100. And keep in mind, that debuff does not wear off. Now, this might seem like it wants you to send really big ships for that effect. After all, the more levels it has, the stronger the debuff. But it's actually way better at sending your pilots to grave, because once they've been foolished, Delta Shuttle can float into Sword Troopers, at which point you can revive that pilot. And even if you have no enemy targets, you can just debuff Delta, which actually makes it easier to crash into other monsters to trigger that float. You know, say what you will about this whole evil empire thing, at least they've got a handle on public transportation, considering all the shuttles. Kozmo Dogfighter is a level 6 dark monster with 2000 attack and 2400 defense, and during each standby phase, you can special summon a Dogfighter token, which has all the same stats as the base monster. And remember, this is during each standby phase, not just your own, so you can pile on a lot of tokens pretty quickly. And if your opponent pops it to stop that effect, well then congratulations, you get to float into another monster. I've got to give props to the art too, as it shows off a variety of dog fighters, kind of like how the TIE fighters have a bunch of variation. Though I've got to be honest, they set the bar a bit too high if these are supposed to be TIE fighters. Those things are supposed to explode if you sneeze on them. How do they have such high defense stats? Kozmo Landwalker is a level 6 dark monster with 2400 attack and 1200 defense, and if any number of Kozmo cards you control would be destroyed by battle or an opponent's card effect, you can destroy one other Kozmo card you control instead. This lets you shift destruction from targets that don't benefit from it, usually your pilots, to your ships, which can then trigger their floating effects. It's also not too shabby stat-wise, but doesn't really accomplish anything by itself, so its usefulness is going to be highly matchup dependent. It also just feels wrong, you know? How do we have a chicken walker stand-in that doesn't look like a chicken? Now, we're still talking about ships, but we've reached a very special category of them. All of our level 7 and higher ships work the exact same way as the rest, but also can't be targeted by your opponent's card effects, giving them a bit more protection. Kozmo Forerunner is a level 7 light monster with 2800 attack and 1400 defense, and during each of your standby phases, you gain 1000 life points, which will help balance out all the life points you'll be spending to use your pilot's effects. Unfortunately, unlike Dogfighter, this only triggers during your standby phase, so the life point gain isn't really that fast. I mean, those effects already aren't very competitive to begin with, but can you imagine if they at least let you have that when it was summoned? Especially nowadays when players always seem to be for running out of time. Kozmo Dark Destroyer is a level 8 dark monster with 3000 attack and 1800 defense, and if this card is normal or special summoned, you can target a monster on the field and destroy it. And this is where Kozmos really came into their own. If Farm Girl is the axis around which the theme turns, then Dark Destroyer is the reason you put the graph together in the first place. I mean, already, a huge, untargetable monster that pops another when it hits board is savage, at least when it first came out, but it also acted as an extender. The idea being that if you have another ship that's already attacked, you can tag in for Dark Destroyer, pop that ship, trade it in for a pilot, maybe even a farm girl if you haven't used their tag out effect yet, attack with that pilot, then tag them out for another Kozmo in hand. This can lead to some pretty devastating battle phases for those practiced in this deck, but even on a surface level, it's spot removal tacked onto a blue eye sized monster that's not gonna lose to a compulsory evacuation device or Book of Moon. This led to the card being well over $100 when the hype was fresh, but as time's gone on and new, better forms of removal have come along that remove the no-win scenario that was dealing with Dark Destroyer, it declined very sharply in usability. I would say that the format basically solved its own little Kobayashi Maru, but we're referencing Star Wars, not Star Trek. Though, when are we getting that archetype? Kozmo Dark Eclipser is a level 9 dark monster with 3000 attack and 2600 defense, and during either player's turn, when a trap card is activated, you can banish a Kozmo monster from your grave to negate the activation, and if you do, destroy it. It also has the floating effect like the rest of the ships, but it doesn't special summon the monster. Instead, it's added to your hand. So focusing on the positives for a bit, it's kinda cool to have a way to stop trap card. I mean, evenly matched is a great way to break the board of a Kozmo player, so being able to stop that is integral. But at the same time, trap cards make up a very small sliver of cards actually played in real duel. And the resource you need to use this effect is graveyarded Kozmos, and as we've pointed out, that makes it really hard to use effectively. So combine that with a less effective floating effect than its peers, and a protection that's becoming more and more irrelevant as power creep grows, and it's really just eclipsed by other options. Kozmo Dark Planet is a level 10 dark monster with 4000 attack and defense, and this gets, silly. See, it can't be normal summoned or set, and must be special summoned from your hand by banishing Kozmo monsters from your hand whose total levels equal 10 or more, and can't be special summoned by other ways, including by your pilots. Doesn't that just suck? It also can't be targeted. Its floating effect adds a level 9 or lower Kozmo monster to your hand from your deck, and also has a negation that works like Dark Eclipser, but stops spells instead of traps. Now, arguably, this is a way more powerful effect, tacked onto a monster that is infinitely more difficult to summon. It's basically a ritual monster, and while the monsters are being banished so they're easier to interact with, 10 levels is a lot to ask for. And I mean, of all the things that could put Kozmos in grave to fuel the negation effects, why is it not the one that needs them most? If not for the summon restriction, this would easily be the best card in the deck, and might even redeem several of the cards that put banished cards back into your grave. But after years of trying to find a way to make this work, I'm sorry to say that this battle station will never be operational. Alright, that's all the monsters, now it's time for the spells and traps. Kozmo Light Sword is an equipped spell that you can only equip to a Psychic type Kozmo monster, so any of our pilots are eligible candidates. The equipped monster gains 500 attack and defense, can make 2 attacks on monsters during each battle phase, and deals piercing battle damage. And on top of that, if this card is sent from the field to the grave, you can pay 800 life points to add this card back to your hand. Now, this isn't going to be a good fit for all of our pilots. Tin Can and Strawman aren't exactly going to fly into the fray with that extra boost, but Wicked Witch does become a 2400 attack beater, while Dark Lady becomes a 2700 double attacker that still has that negation. But the best target by far is Farm Girl. They go up to 2k, a very respectable battle stat, can push through damage on defense position monsters to trigger that search effect, and can even potentially trigger it twice, as that effect is not once per turn. Just keep in mind that the double attack only works on monsters, it can't be direct. It's a really cool card, but I hate having to say this so many times this episode, but we already suffer from a huge case of the Big Chonker and Little Scrunglow conundrum, and Light Sword is another one of those on top of what we're already dealing with. Especially since, like I said, it doesn't even pair well with all of our psychics. But God, do I love the Darth Maul energy coming off this card. I want her to be good so bad. Kozmo Town is a field spell card, and once per turn, you can target one of your banished Kozmo monsters and return it to the hand, and if you do, lose life points equal to its original level times 100. Also, once per turn, you can reveal any number of Kozmo monsters in your hand and shuffle them into the deck, then draw cards equal to the number of cards you shuffled into the deck. Also, if this card in the field zone is destroyed by a card effect, you can add a Kozmo card from your deck to your hand. Now, this is a powerhouse of a card, and has been integral in every build of the deck since its inception. It recycles your banished monsters, which is why it's so integral for them to be banished so you can keep looping them. It has a mulligan effect that can help with the BCLS conundrum, and if it gets popped, you can replace it with any card in your theme, even another copy of itself. Heck, if you want, you can trigger this with Slip Rider if you don't have another target you'd rather pop, making this the talk of the town. Kozmojo is a normal trap card that targets a Kozmo monster you control. You destroy it, and if you do, banish any card your opponent controls. And that last part doesn't target, making this a pretty strong piece of removal, especially in the mirror. It's technically a 2-for-1 trade, but if you pop one of your ships, then you get a replacement which basically evens things out. Though thankfully it's not machine locked, so if you have to pop one of your pilots, you do have the option. Kozmojo is a really powerful piece of interaction that can really take advantage of any choke points in your opponent's play sequences. Cosmorning is a continuous trap card that makes monsters destroyed by battle with Kozmo monsters you control get shuffled into the deck instead of going to the grave. Once again, something I feel is very helpful in the mirror. You can also banish this card from your grave, and the first time you would take battle damage from a battle involving a Kozmo monster you control this turn, you gain that much life points instead. Now, it correctly identified that Kozmos needed more ways to gain life points since you keep chugging it down like so much blue milk, but the way Cosmorning goes about it sucks. It's super telegraphed, only works when taking damage instead of something more proactive, and the on-field effect is also very, very situational. I know Good Witch is sad about the death of a fellow Space Witch. I'm sad we didn't get a better card in the slot. Alright, that's all the cards, but what do we do with them? Well, we gotta go aggro. It might seem like we can play a little bit of control, what with our negation effects and token generation, and the steady stream of life points we can gain, but don't be fooled. We want to end the game as quick as possible. That means combat tricks, that means removal, and that means ways to keep your opponent from messing with us until it's too late. So what can we play to help them out? Well, I think a good place to start is with all the staples. I know I've mentioned it before, but just to be absolutely clear, emergency teleport is the GOAT, but enjoy it while you can, because Punk could always potentially get that thing struck down. Now that I mention it, I mean, why not play some Punks? It adds some tuners to your lineup to broaden your play sequences, and you get some pluses from them to give you more interaction with your opponent. And with their ability to both drain your life points and make level 11 synchros, you can utilize the full power of Psychic End Punisher, which is just a really stupidly powerful game ender. Emergency Teleport also gives you access to the level 2 tuner, Psy-Frame Gear Gamma. In fact, the Gamma Hand Trap package ain't that bad. A lot of our monster effects either activate off the field or get them off the field as cost. So if your opponent decides they're going to try and retaliate with an Ash Blossom on one of your ship summons, you can slap them with Gamma, then make a Link 2 or a level 8 Synchro. A field spell that's been used to supplement Cosmo Town is Fire King Island. It seems pretty odd, but it does destroy monsters in your hand, and since the ships don't care where they're destroyed, the island acts as kind of like a little Scrunglow to help jumpstart your plays. As for a search target, Avatar, Garunix, and Kirin are level 3, which means you can have them Xyz summon for Leviair. Oh yeah, and you could also just play Dark Hola. That's a pretty good board wipe that triggers your ships. Though you also have the option of playing Raigeki if you don't want to be reciprocal. Torrential Tribute is also pretty good, as it gives you the ability to be a little sneaky. Some cards you might not want to include, and this seems strange, are the Banish Floodgates. While your pilots won't feel very different under Dim Fizz, Macro, or Shifter, your ships actually have to go to the grave so that they can be banished to float. If they get directly banished, it won't work. But some weird floodgates that actually work here are Rivalry, Gozen, and there can be only one. But listen carefully, because when I say weird, I really mean it. So, example, let's say you have Gozen on board alongside Farm Girl by themselves. You're locked into Light, but as long as you have a Light Cosmo in hand, you can activate Farm Girl's effect, tagging them out, because at that time, you have a legal target to do so. However, once Farm Girl leaves the field, you no longer have any monsters on board to lock you into a particular attribute. So if you have a Dark Cosmo in hand as well, you could choose to summon that instead. But, and I cannot stress this enough, you can only legally activate that effect if you have a Light Cosmo in hand. In short, we have some wiggle room when it comes to these floodgates, but you have to make sure that you can legally activate and resolve those summon effects as if those floodgate effects would still apply. This works similarly with our ship's floating effects, but is a lot easier to pull off since you have a whole deck of cards to choose from. Revival effects can go a long way to making the most of our monsters. Different Dimension Reincarnation can get back anything from our banished zone at the cost of a discard, which some of our other cards might be able to take advantage of. But if you've already dumped a few monsters into the grave with Tin Can and Delta Shuttle, Call of the Haunted and Back to the Front both work splendidly. Oh, and I guess Monster Reborn too. As for a silly tech pick, well, this time I actually have two I want to show off, because I'm feeling extra goofy today. Oh yeah, also I guess because it's based on two franchises. Let's go with that one. Anyway, first off is Pinpoint Landing. Yeah, it's card draw for when your engine is already working as it should, sure, but because of the quick effect nature of your tag outs, we can trigger this on both players' turns, so you get twice the reward. The second one is, well, look, we're already spending a lot of life points, and we're already banishing a lot of cards anyway, right? Well, if you want a quick way to recoup those costs, play Soul Absorption. Every tag out and every float nets you a cool 500 life points, which pays for any of your light psychic effects and half of the dark one. And this has no upper limit on trigger, so as long as you can keep banishing, the more life points you get. Besides, remember the whole time rule thing going on? It kind of puts you at a disadvantage in that realm when you're already paying out your nose for these effects, so you might as well have some way to even it up, right? And that's all I have to say about Kozmo. Boy howdy, if ever there was a theme that needed an update, it's this one. It's got all the power to close out a game it could ever want, now we just need better ways to boost their consistency, as well as being able to summon things like Dark Planet a lot easier. So, here's hoping some of that Nova mojo rubs off on the theme, but we can't do it alone. So log on to your favorite social media platform of choice, put on your Ruby typing gloves, and post after me. There's no place like corsets. There's no place like corsets. There's no place like corsets. But now, I want to hear what you all have to say. Are Kozmos a good deck or a bad deck? And out of the whole archetype, what's your favorite reference, whether it be from Star Wars or The Wizard of Oz? I'm fairly certain a lot of the references come from the Oz books and not the movie, so there's a lot I'm sure I'm missing out on, so I'd love to hear from all of you if you have the inside scoop. And of course, while you're down there, please make sure to like this video and subscribe to show your support, ring that bell so you don't miss an episode, and share this video with someone you know who loves Yu-Gi-Oh! It really does a lot to help me out. This episode was brought to you by my lovely patrons, including this month's illustrious Quasar Commander, Julius Sneezer, Nebula Navigator's 3rd Dynasty, Adam Zajdel, Avi Chali, Kane Senpai, Cameron Berg, Chibi Gohan, Eric, Frankie, Genesis Yu-Gi-Oh!, Gloomba331, Great Big Pillock, Harry the Ominous Benefactor, Howling Zangetsu, Ironic, John Manji, Julius Sneezer, Larakia, Mana Charge, Marluxia is a Girl, Meteornus, Michael Madsen, Mighty Action X, Panther J, Rebel King Lucifer, Rem T Bright, RJ the Jank Monarch, Ruxith Sarani, Sophie, apparently, The Fresh Prince of Conair, The Wizard Moose and Xander Wolfensberger, Cosmic Crusaders Ariel Kersey, Bear Sharktopus Studios, Chaz Ghost, Chris Kessler, Corbinisms, Emily Eva Padilla, Herbal D, Jesus Garcia, Kale the Dragon, Carp, King Scarlet Yu-Gi-Oh!, Lord Whoop-De-Doo, Manga Pages, Marion James E. Picata, Matt Simmons, Neo Trinity 7, Nitromo, Sarah Lo Sulci, Shaquille Solomon, Shooting Star 3300, Star-Lord 777, Super Purd, Tucker Ordorn, and the Legendary Raven, as well as the wonderful Starlight Explorers you see on screen now. I'm only able to continue doing this thanks to the support of these lovely people, so if you'd like to be a part of these credits, help me in my journey to cover all of Yu-Gi-Oh's archetypes, and get all my videos just a little bit early, please check out my YouTube membership or Patreon links in the description to see if I have anything you'd like on offer. And if you'd like to see another video about another super powerful TCG exclusive theme, check out this video I did on Burning Abyss. And if you want to see two Yu-Gi tubers going at it, check out Noah Jenkinai's latest series Progression Polls, where your voice shapes the format. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.